everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director for GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, the weekly video series where we talk about the latest and greatest in physical media. And this week's episode is fantastic. We have new releases from the Criterion Collection, Eureka Entertainment, Shout Studios, the Vinegar Syndrome partner labels, and more. There's a lot of great stuff, and I'm just excited to delve into it. So I'm going to delve into one of my most anticipated for this week, and that is from the Criterion Collection. It is a new box set. I'm going to butcher this man's name, and I apologize for that, but this is Ousmane Sembène's 3-film collection. It is 3 revolutionary films by Ousmane Sembène. I'm pretty confident on the Sembène part. The first name, not so sure. I'm a big fan of this director from what I've seen. I previously reviewed several years ago, whenever the Criterion Collection released Mandabi, which was a really great film. And I've been really interested in getting more into African cinema, and I have in some more recent films, like I covered last year, I believe, is Iyumofe, This Is My Desire. And so, but Sembène, he is kind of like the godfather of African cinema. He's just kind of the one that stands out most in the public consciousness. So I'm glad that his 3 films from the 70s are finally coming to Blu-ray, so I can check them out. And spoiler alert, they're very good. So I've here's the last film, Seto, of the 3, and I'll go through these one by one. So you had Seto, Zala, and Imatai. Just a little bit of context. There's a kind of a recurring theme throughout this set. Is Sembène is a man who really and it delves into this in the booklet that kind of that comes with this, is that African cinema really was hampered by kind of colonialism and the influence of the French oppression that they especially were kind of under the thumb of the French for the most of the part of the early 1900s. So a lot of early African cinema was really influenced by that. And Sembène, he kind of came of age whenever that influence had finally kind of loosened up a little bit, and African storytellers were finally allowed to kind of start telling their history. And Sembène was very influential in telling, just kind of documenting, but in like a creative way, what his people had went through, and kind of subvert some of the preconceived notions that French colonialism had imparted on the African culture at large, in their cinema especially. So especially these works in the 70s are really a lot of Sembène recapturing the past in there's different eras that are being explored here, but really recontextualizing what the Africans went through under this French colonialism and just other kind of cultural shakeups that happened throughout the centuries that really influenced their culture and their way of living. And he approaches in really smart, intellectual ways that are also very digestible, especially for Africans of the time, to kind of like reckon with their own history, but also for an international audience like myself, who may not know as much about this area and like the imperialist notions of this area. But through watching Sembène's films, I've especially kind of gotten a little bit more of a clearer picture that makes me want to like learn even more about what was happening in this area. And the first that he went through was Imatai, which was set, I believe, in like the World War II-ish era. And this is a story about the French coming in, and it's based on real events, the French coming into Africa and basically forcing a lot of young African men to, like, basically shipping them off to fight for the French in World War II. In addition to that, they would go into Africa and force them to give up a lot of their food to feed their boys over in France, but also just probably also mostly feeding French soldiers. So this particular tale is about some French fighters coming into this village and wanting to have all these villagers give up almost all of their rice and like so a lot of their food, or else they, all the while the people who are resisting them, they are holding their women hostage. So it's a very gripping, while not without moments of levity. This is one of the more serious of the trio, where you have this like kind of standoff between like the French colonizers who are trying to upset the power dynamic and also force them to fight in a war that is not exactly theirs, but just due to the fact that the French have power over them, they're forcing them to fight for them. So it's kind of that kind of dynamic, and it's a very tense, a recurring theme throughout Sembène's work, which I really appreciate. He's a very feminist-minded filmmaker, and he really elevates the power of women in their society and how they're portrayed on screen. Pretty much throughout, women have a lot of the power, and whenever men are kind of making a lot of rash decisions or very big decisions, it's usually the women who are kind of silently, not as bombastically, kind of pulling the strings in the background and making things happen. And that's something I really appreciate about this one especially. The next one, Zala, it's a more of a satirical, much lighter, but still very insightful. Zala is kind of what is known as, it's kind of like a curse. It's more of a modern tale, modern to the time, and it's Sembène commenting on the ineffectuality of their government and how the bourgeois scene really kind of kowtow to the French government, and still kind of, and while the everyday person is kind of left out to sea with this ineffectual government. And this is portrayed through Zala, a curse that is making a specific French African government official impotent, especially whenever he is about to marry his third wife. So there's a lot of commentary about the notion of taking multiple wives, the ineffectualness of governance through the prism of being impotent, and how all these men, how it affects these men very viscerally, knowing that if they do not have like sexual power, how that kind of impacts their whole lives and upends their sense of identity. And it's very funny. It's a little bit over long. It's over 2 hours, and I think it could have been like kind of slimmed down a little bit to be a little less kind of bloated, but overall I think it's a very effective movie. And just having these men like masculinity called into question, and through these mystical forces, this curse that's put on them, it's very well handled, and it's very funny. The final film, once again getting into more dramatic territory, is Seto. And this Seto, I believe they kind of roughly translated to like freedom fighters or rebels. And this is set a couple hundred years ago, and this is around the time where the influence of the West was being felt, where the white like kind of evangelists and stuff were bringing, and then also other kind of religious forces were bringing different kinds of religions into the African region. Especially in this tale is they are bringing Islam into this culture where that is not what they practice. And it's like this king who has been kind of influenced by an imam who has kind of like an evil streak to him. But he is a religious figure, so a lot of like devout followers are following him without question, where all the people who are in Africa, and they eventually kidnap the king's daughter for kind of like a hostage, to say like, hey, we do not want this new religion imposed upon us, and you are kind of foregoing a lot of our traditions of the past. And it's like kind of this conflict where you are seeing kind of the bulldozing of culture and being forced with religion, just because that is what the encroaching forces believe in and how it impacts the culture. So while these films might all seem kind of well, especially except for Zala, but these films might seem a little bit overly heavy or preachy. It's not preachy. I think that's very entertaining for what it is, but it's also very it's very cutting, and it's very inquisitive. And I really like Sembène's point of view as a storyteller. He really just dives to kind of the core of the narratives and the problems at hand, and really gives you a clear sense of like, what he thinks is wrong with society, why he thinks it, and kind of really displays it in a really like kind of fascinating, all-encompassing way that all pretty much works fantastically throughout all three of these movies. And I was never really bored throughout these three, and I think he is a knockout filmmaker, and he is one that I think is deserving of any kind of acclaim this on the same level as like the French masters or Italian masters or even like the Japanese, like any Asian cinema. I think African cinema is way too overlooked. So this Sembène collection, along with his other work like Black Girl and Mandabi, that's also out on Blu-ray. Definitely check him out. He's a great filmmaker. We unfortunately lost him, I believe, in 2007. But everything I've seen, I've loved from him, and this is a great collection from the Criterion Collection. These all come from 4K restorations of the 35mm original camera negative. They all look pretty fantastic, except for Seto. That one's I assume that the original elements may have not been in great shape. It largely looks fantastic, but there are stretches, and they are fairly lengthy. I would say at least 10 to 20 minutes of the movie has some form of light discoloration or some kind of like print damage that you can tell that the original elements were not pristine. The rest of the movie looks fantastic. It's just whenever I'm watching a Criterion Collection transfer, I don't usually expect that level of damage to the elements, but I think this is a case of they wanted to make sure that this work still was able to get out to the public, and it doesn't ruin the transfer. It is just a little bit surprising based on what I'm used to from the Criterion Collection, but overall it still looks fantastic, and I don't think it's a major distraction. And the other two films, I did not notice that as clearly. I did not notice any major damage. Everything else looks pretty great. The audio sounds good as well, especially being from the 70s. Everything still sounds really good. The original language tracks are in. In terms of special features, you get a new conversation with like a historian of like African cinema that like runs like one of the major African cinema film festivals. He is talking with another film historian. You also get a making of I believe it's Seto. This is the one that gets the making of. So overall, you get some good special features. There's some other supplements as well. And then you get the booklet I showed you, and then just some nice packaging. So this Three Revolutionary Tales from Sembène from the Criterion Collection is definitely worth checking out. That is probably going to be the one I'm going to be most thorough in, but the rest are also really good. I'm going to start my first venture into OCN distribution Vinegar Syndrome territory. This is from our friends at Cinematography, and this is Dangerous Game from Abel Ferrara. Cinematography was a label released earlier this year, curated by Justin LaLiberty over at Vinegar Syndrome, and he has done a fantastic job. This was a Abel Ferrara movie that I had not seen yet, but I was interested to check out. I am not the absolute biggest Ferrara fan, but I respect the hell out of him. He's a filmmaker who can be very like in your face and aggressive in a way that it doesn't always jive with me. And this was kind of the case with this one, but I still really like a lot of his work. But let me just continue showing this off. So here is the back side of the cover here, and then this is like a removable J card here. Dangerous Game, it stars Madonna and Harvey Keitel, and James Russo, I believe his name is. Yes, from China Girl, who another Ferrara movie. This is Ferrara really going away from his more standard like genre crime exercises and going more into dramatic Hollywood kind of, not satire exactly, but commenting. It's a movie about filmmaking, and specifically this is him showing the blurred lines between a reality and fiction, and this is Harvey Keitel playing a director that's very loosely like a Ferrara surrogate, with his two stars, James Russo and Madonna, who this is kind of like he's creating a drama on screen that is very volatile. It's a very toxic relationship. And this movie is about this director kind of getting lost in this along with the actors. And you see Ferrara incorporating a lot of real life rehearsal footage of Dangerous Game into this footage as if it's the rehearsal footage for the movie that's being made. And this is shot in kind of like a different videotape format that I will talk about with the video quality. But it's all kind of just like, it's a very visceral, toxic kind of commentary on just, I think, the artistic process and toxic relationships. And what I didn't quite get, for me specifically, I'm not sure if all the themes that he was going for completely came together. This could be something that would reveal itself more with repeated viewings. It's a very unpleasant movie, which doesn't mean it's bad, but it's not a light movie to just go into. So I'm sure that I'll probably get more from it with repeat viewings. But as a movie itself, I respect kind of some of the things it was doing. It just didn't connect with me like thematically and emotionally as much as I kind of hoped for. But Ferrara movies have a way of kind of sneaking up on me after a while and revealing themselves. So I'm definitely going to check this out again. Madonna is fantastic. So is Harvey Keitel, even James Russo, and there's just some very upsetting stuff that happens within this. So if you're going to check out a Ferrara movie, if you're kind of new to him, definitely check out something else before this one. But if you really find yourself grooving with him, definitely check out this release because it's a fantastic release. So this was previously released by Olive Films, but this is being released again on Blu-ray from Cinematography from a 4K scan of the original camera negative, and it looks fantastic. The rehearsal footage that's shot on videotape, it's going to look the best that it can, but everything else, it's nice, filmic, no DNR, it's just natural film grain, really nice textures, nice colors. Like whenever they go to certain restaurants out and about, they look very nice and deep. Just a really good transfer, good DTS 2.0 audio track, and this is the uncut version of the movie. The theatrical cut that I believe was also on the Olive Films release is not included, but what you want is the uncut version, the version that you didn't have to just take out a bunch of stuff to a PCMP AA. So you get the uncut version in great quality. You also get a host of new special features because there wasn't really any, as far as I can tell, on the Olive release besides like a trailer. You get a ton of new releases here, or special features here. You get a new commentary track from some film fans, historians. You get 5 new interviews, including one with Abel Ferrara, and then like the the editor, the composer, James Russo, Nancy Ferrara, his wife at the time. So they all kind of give some comments that range from about 12 to 25 minutes. And one thing I really appreciate, I think the conversation with Ferrara now is worth the price of admission for me. It's really interesting. This is unfortunately recorded just days after his cinematographer had passed away. So he's very raw and very like emotional for much of it, but it also he has this classic Ferrara way of just putting things so bluntly and talking so matter-of-factly about this movie that I really appreciate. Like, he doesn't necessarily try to defend it as like a misunderstood masterpiece, but just his way of talking makes me appreciate the movie even more. And just like, he just kind of talks about how he is just kind of like out there and just doing things, and just the way the script evolved, it makes sense with this movie, and I think it's a fantastic interview. There's also a couple other special features, including a 15-minute visual essay that goes into more of the themes of the movie. So if you're a Ferrara fan, this Dangerous Game Blu-ray release is terrific, but it's not for the faint of heart, just being honest. My next release from a OCN partner label is from Yellow Veil Pictures, and that is Without Name. This is set in Ireland, and it is kind of a more vibe-driven horror tale. Here's the reversible cover art you can see here. And it is about a land surveyor who goes out to this land in Ireland that is literally not been documented on the map. So that is the Without Name, is from the name of the movie. It is a patch of land without name. And while this surveyor is out in the woods, weird things start happening. It kind of like thinks that someone's kind of trying to sabotage him, and eventually one of his co-workers arrives and takes him out of this weird headspace, but also he keeps devolving into kind of a sort of psychosis, returning to nature. And also, while he is doing this land survey for a man who may or may not be wanting to like harm the land, so there's like a little bit of an ecological bent to things as well. And there's also all these tales of like the person who lived at the house that he's renting before also kind of losing his mind, and he's currently in a coma. So it's kind of like a eco folk horror driven tale, which if you're looking for like blood and guts and like terrifying imagery, you need to set your expectations. This is not that. It is way more trippy, and it kind of like eats away at your mind a little bit after you watch it, but it is not, it kind of leaves you with a sense of dread more than terror, which I like quite a bit. I like kind of the kind of getting under your skin aspect of horror quite a bit. And so if you like that, Without Names, definitely a good one to check out. This is a more recent movie. It's from 2016. Great HD transfer, looks great, no banding or anything like that. It's just a really solid transfer. DTS 5.1 sound. You also get a commentary track. You get some deleted scenes, an intro from the director. You get one of the director's short films, and then you also get some storyboards and concept art, all that kinds of stuff. So Yellow Bell Pictures definitely treated this one right. Without Name. It's an interesting folk horror-esque tale. My next title is from ETR Media. It's another Vinegar Syndrome partner label from OCN Distribution. That is Slope's Game Room, Cult Movies, Shows, and Classic Comics. I recently covered, as of last year, the first Slope's Game Room release from ETR Media, which Slope's Game Room is a really fantastic YouTube channel where DJ Slope, he creates these fantastic videos where he delves deep into these very niche video games and other kind of video entertainment related topics. The first volume or first release from Slope's Game Room was this History of Sega Volume 1. This is a little bit something different where these videos specifically, there's 9 of them, they're focusing on more video games that are kind of connected to popular culture. So you have stuff like Freddy vs. Jason, Beavis and Butthead, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Alien vs. Predator, Saw, Friday the 13th, Evil Dead. I'm probably missing one, but those are the type of things that you have in here. Yeah, so this is a really great release. All these videos are very well produced, and even what I really like about this series is the idea of what should or should not be on Blu-ray, because in my opinion, if it's something that you really love, you probably want to own it in like some really good quality, and that is what is happening with these. So yes, these are YouTube videos, but they're so well produced that they are, I think, as good as like a lot of documentaries, and they deserve a place to live on your shelf. These also, there's been a lot of care put into putting these on disc, because I know at least 3 of them have been newly recorded audio, because I know on some of the commentary tracks, DJ Slope, Daniel Ibbotson, I believe. Apologies if I'm butchering the last name. He talks about how whenever he was originally recording these, he wasn't using the best mic or whatever, so he put that effort into re-recording the audio completely, and it sounds fantastic. And then also there are certain videos like the Friday the 13th video that have not even been released yet, and who knows if they will even be released on the channel. So that's like even a little bit of an extra incentive to get this. But if you just want to know all like the weird, wild details of these games, often which are not very good. I remember there's also a Howard the Duck video. That's like the first one that starts off. Just like, yes, a flawed movie, also flawed video game, it turns out. But it's a fantastic watch to like, as Daniel, he just like weaves in all these factoids and like background info that you just feel like you've really gained a lot of really interesting information about something, while maybe you haven't played the video game or you're not even interested in video games. It's just interesting history, and that's what I really like about this series. And so yes, you get 9 of those, and then these all are in very good quality, HD, looks fantastic, sound is great, even though it's lossy audio, Dolby Digital 2.0. For this content specifically, I can kind of overlook that. That's not DTS, but it still sounds really good. Also, for this release, you also get a really cool video maze game. It's a throwback to the 80s maze games where you have to kind of use your control to make your way through this maze and on screen, so you get to kind of like play your own video game. It makes you end up learning a code that leads you to a really cool extra video that you will not want to miss. It's kind of, I won't spoil it for you for those who make it to the end, but it is kind of related to popular culture and video game adjacent territory, and it's trust me, it's worth it. And there's other cool Easter eggs on here as well. Not quite as many as the first release, but there's some really good ones. Especially if you listen to the commentary, you can maybe hear 1 or 2 of the Easter eggs, but I'm not going to give away those. But I know if you buy the exclusive slipcover that's at Ocean Distribution and Vinegar Syndrome, I hear that if you check the packaging carefully, you might get some clues as to how to seek out some of these Easter eggs. Also, you get a commentary track for every single video from DJ Slope. And they all are very informative and entertaining and stuff. So definitely, just if you love this channel, this series, or if you just like, if you've never watched it before, definitely check them out. If you need to sample the YouTube channel, by all means, but this is a great release. And if you're like a popular culture nerd like myself, you're going to want to check this out. A lot of care has been put into this release, and there's a lot of cool special features, like additional audio interviews with some of the team behind the Evil Dead video game. That's really cool, and then just some other odds and ends here. So really good release from ETR Media and the Slopes Game Room people. I just want, all that they want to release from this line, I'll eat it up. It's fantastic. Kind of staying in the digital world, I'm going to Shout Studios and their release of Digimon Adventure 02, The Beginning. It's been a while since I've watched and reviewed a Digimon movie. The last one I watched, I believe, was in 2020, and it was kind of the very end finale of this epic story that had been percolating for years, and I reviewed it kind of blind, not knowing kind of all the backstory. So, which makes me appreciate this is kind of this special card pack here. I tried to open it as gingerly as possible, but things still kind of got opened pretty messily. But I got a couple of cards here. Well, one card here. So this is the card I got. I'm not sure if it is the same for everyone, but that is an additional collectible card that you will get with your purchase. So while that last release, it kind of like closed a chapter, the beginning, it is beginning a new chapter. It follows some characters that we already know, but it's set kind of in the future from when we last saw them. A weird digi-egg has formed over the city. And no one really knows why it is there, but what the team comes to learn whenever they start to investigate, they come across this mysterious figure that has a connection, and you learn that they are claiming to be the first ever Digi-Destined. There's a lot of lore in here that might be kind of unfamiliar to newcomers, but it's just like the OG kind of digital monster handler, and just like telling this backstory that's often very tragic but also very interesting, that is kicking off this journey that kind of, it's accessible to newcomers, but I think will also reward longtime fans. I'm kind of in the middle of the two camps. I'm not completely up on my Digimon lore. I was a huge fan when I was a kid, and then I went like 20 years without engaging with the franchise, and I'm trying to catch up like mentally to where we are. But I think this really hit the sweet spot for me, where I can understand the story. I think as a contained story, It hits some themes that are very adult and mature, but also still kind of accessible for a family audience. And there's some really cool monster stuff going on. It's not the most action-packed Digimon movie I've ever seen, but it's entertaining. And I think it's a worthy start to this new chapter of the franchise. And it looks fantastic on Blu-ray. It has the both Japanese and English dub audio, both in 5.1 lossless. You get a minute-long introduction from the director that kind of tells you how this sets up kind of this new franchise, like this era of the franchise. Other than that, there's like a trailer, so not much in the way of special features, but pretty cool release overall. If you're a Digimon fan, it's worth checking out. Staying in Shoutland, but going to their more live-action adult stuff. This is Shout Studios' release of Lost in Space Collector's Edition. This is the late 90s movie that was the movie that famously dethroned Titanic from the #1 spot after weeks and weeks and weeks. Otherwise, nothing too notable about this. Is kind of a mess, and it's kind of notoriously, people kind of hate this one. And while I don't think it's worth hating, I also think it is very much a mess. It is based on the old school, I believe, 60s TV show, and it's updated. It has a really great cast. You get like William Hurt, Mimi Rogers, Heather Graham, Matt LeBlanc from TV's Friends, Lacey Chabert, and Gary Oldman as a villainous, kind of halfway malicious, halfway doofus character. You can tell that he didn't really want to be there. They say as much in the special features, but everyone else seems to be putting in good work. And not that Gary's bad, he's just kind of doing the bare minimum to get by. And I think there's some good stuff to this. The core is just like, there's an ecological bend of like this family leaving Earth to go on this mission that they're supposed to be in cryosleep for like a decade to reach this new planet that they're going to colonize and all this stuff. But through people who are trying to sabotage them, their journey, they ends up getting sabotaged by Gary Oldman. They wake up and they have to kind of deal with where they're at and just kind of like all the stuff that's going on within this ship. And it leads to like some weird kind of time travel stuff and everything. It's a very messy movie. And at the beginning of the movie, I think is pretty good. It's just at the end of the movie, things kind of get very convoluted. CGI overload. You have Jared Harris showing up, but like not being able to pull off an English accent, so his voice is completely dubbed over, which is very distracting knowing who Jared Harris is. It really does not work for me. It just devolves into just like visual glob. But there are things to admire about this. I think the biggest drawbacks are characters are not given enough time to be fully defined, and the CGI for this time, it is very indicative of this time. It's very, well, there are things that definitely did it better at this time, but it's very dated looking CGI, which kind of takes you out of the movie from a modern perspective, but I'm sure at the time was kind of mind-blowing that things went so well. But it's very dated looking CGI. This has been previously released on Blu-ray by Warner Brothers. This has been given a new 2K scan of the interpositive. I've never owned this before, but I think it looks very nice on Blu-ray. That was kind of more of an early Blu-ray for Warner Brothers, so I'm sure it had like it was from an older master, probably had some age to it. Speculation, but this looks nice for what it is. It pushes its limits to what it can be within, like I said, the iffy CGI is not being improved, but it looks how it's supposed to look. DTS 5.1 sound is fantastic. A lot of big explosions and laser fire and stuff. In terms of special features, I believe it ports over almost everything from the original Blu-ray releases, besides the music video, but you get some archival making up featurettes and interviews with some of the original Lost in Space TV show cast members who cameoed in this movie. The big thing about this release, special features-wise, is there is a new, I believe, 29-minute interview with the screenwriter, Akiva Goldsman, who's also a producer, and then like the director, I believe Stephen Norrington. I really like this new retrospective on the movie because they are kind to the movie, but they also kind of realize some of the drawbacks to what they created, and they admit that it wasn't exactly what they wanted to do. And there's a lot of great talk about stuff that was happening on set, and just like how they felt that like some of the big CGI robot that you see right here, that they were afraid that it was actually going to kill somebody when it was on set, and just like kind of like the drama around that. You hear about Gary Oldman trying to avoid Uma Thurman at the time, who was getting a divorce from on the set, and how William Hurt was just like trying to really get invested in this, but but he wasn't like getting what he was needing from certain people, and just like all the juicy gossip you would want to know about Lost in Space. You do get it on here, so I appreciate it for that aspect. I think it is almost worth it for that alone. It's a passable movie. It's just a really slapdash effort that like doesn't really hold up narratively. There's some impressive stuff here and there, but very messy. It's like, it's, if you're a fan of the movie, get this version, but otherwise, it's not like a misunderstood masterpiece. I think it's pretty evenly judged. But a movie that holds up much better. This is an 80s classic, but me watching it for the first time, I really loved it from the modern perspective. This is the original Red Dawn, with Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Lea Thompson, Charlie Sheen, Jennifer Grey. This, I was shocked by this, because like I'd always heard about this, and the Wolverines, you hear all the lore about Red Dawn. But yes, so it's like Soviets and other countries invading USA, and these high schoolers escape to the mountains and kind of train themselves to fight against the Soviets. It kind of sounds a little bit cheesy, but this movie takes it deathly seriously, and it is very intense, and it's like a pretty solid war movie. And especially if you're a fan of these performers, which I very much am. I love Swayze and Lea Thompson especially. There's a lot of really interesting things going on within this movie, and like there's some good action. There's some things that don't all hold together. Like, is it completely believable that these teenagers would like become like super killing machines after a few months? Maybe not, like left to their own devices, but there's a lot of things that I really like about this, especially like whenever they have like kind of a mentor figure come in for a little while. I believe it's played by Powers Booth, if I remember correctly. I really like his stint in the movie, and just, it's a really good action movie with like obvious like political elements of like the scare at the time of this creation. Solid 80s movie, action movie, good cast, memorable, fantastic. And I owned this previously on like an old MGM Blu-ray, and I checked it against this new 4K. Difference is night and day. This 4K is fantastic. Dolby Vision from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. Looks great. Nice natural film grain, nice bold colors, lots of intricate details on the clothing and within the landscapes. Audio is decent. There's some limitations to the audio, but it sounds as good as this, I believe, material can sound. Without maybe like a complete reconstruction of the audio with like new sweetened effects or whatever. For how it's supposed to sound, it sounds as good as it can. You get all the special features from the previous Shout Blu-ray, which includes a 69-minute look back on the film with various like cast members and creative figures and crew people, all that stuff. You also get 4 featurettes that range from about 10 to 23 minutes that goes into the making of this film. So if you're a fan of Red Dawn, check it out. I think there might be a new steelbook being released soon, so check out that one. But I love this original cover art as well. So if you can find it with the original slipcover, I think that is also worth checking out. Another wartime movie, but this one is based more in reality. This is Catherine Bigelow's K-19, The Widowmaker, with Harrison Ford and Liam Neeson. And some other notable people like Peter Sarsgaard in an early role. I've kind of been on a Catherine Bigelow roll lately. Watched the Shout Factory release of Point Break a little while ago, and just recently I watched Detroit for the first time, which was fantastic. K-19 is a good effort from Bigelow, but is also probably one of my least favorite from her. Just because she does a lot of good stuff, but K-19 is based on the real life like I believe it's set in the Cold War. It's not actually like an action movie. It's more of a drama and kind of the ineffectual nature of like leadership and power and paranoia of like not wanting to let down your country whenever like this first nuclear armed submarine kind of gets into some trouble, and the crew members led by the Harrison Ford, who is captaining the ship, are trying to like figure out how they can survive, what it means if they were to surrender to the U.S., or whether it is better to like go out with honor, not disgracing your motherland, or whether you should save your men and consequences be damned. One of the bigger things about this movie is that like Harrison Ford doing a Russian accent, a little bit iffy. Liam Neeson surprisingly does a little bit better. All these people, they don't get a lot of real Russians to play these Russians, so that's a little bit iffy. There's some dramatic things happening. I think it's a little bit overly long for what this tension is. There's some really great filmmaking in here, really great performances. Just, it didn't completely have me hooked the entire time. But I like the dynamic of like these officers who feel that their mission is doomed and then it ends up being doomed, and how they respond to that psychologically. And it's just a very kind of like pot boiler thriller. So people probably will be upset that there's not like a lot of action if that's what they go to submarine movies for, but it's kind of like a psychological excavation. K-19 is pretty solid. It's just, and this new 4K, it comes in Dolby Vision from a 4K scan of the original camera negative. Looks really great. It's a really good transfer from Shout Studios. It has DTS 5.1 sound, really great. Audio commentary track from Catherine Bigelow and I believe the cinematographer Jeff Cronenwith. You also get a couple of featurettes and a trailer and stuff, so, and a making of. Really good package if you like it, and this was released like on an old Paramount Blu-ray, so this is definitely a step up for fans. And I think if you're a Ford fan, Liam Neeson fan, Catherine Bigelow fan, you'll be very pleased by this one. It's just not my favorite from anyone involved, but it's still a solid movie. My next title from Shout is from Andrew Dominik, and this is Chopper. So Andrew Dominik, he's kind of acclaimed for like the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, and he's kind of notorious for directing Blonde. So after watching Blonde recently and being a more on the negative aspect, I was interested to go back to one of his earliest features, Chopper, especially since I love Eric Bana. It's very rare that you see him in such like a gritty role. The movie I can compare this best to would probably be Bronson with Tom Hardy, which is very much worth seeking out if anyone hasn't seen it before. But Chopper is based on a real life person from Australia. He's a notorious criminal who kind of had delusions of grandeur, but he's kind of like a psychopath, but also kind of has like he's just the type of person who can like snap on a dime, but also feels like very charming in a way, and like uses his charm to like in like very, like I said, sociopathic way. It's just like a person who's like about to get out of prison, but he just sees someone who he's always wanted to hurt, and like he kind of sabotages himself and like just like decides to stab someone just like right when he's on the verge of freedom, like that type of thing. His sense of loyalty to his friends who he kind of pushes to the brink. He's just such a complex character where he's despicable, but he also has like a sense of just like whimsy and just like insanity to him that he makes such an engaging watch. Eric Bana is like, this is one of his best performances. He is just like, I would not expect this from him, but he nails it. So if you like wild tales of like criminals and just like losing their minds, but also just being kind of interesting about it, Chopper is definitely worth checking out. This Blu-ray from Shout, I believe, uses a master from a few years ago that people have complained about for a while. I believe it originated out of Australia, but it has like a lot of just like unnatural quality to it. I believe it's been hit with a lot of DNR. It's just like, it's not the most beautiful looking picture. I hear that a second site released a Blu-ray overseas last year as well that may have been from a different master that looks apparently a lot better. I have not seen that one to check it out. So This master is not the best. Sounds pretty good. You get a couple of audio commentary tracks and some featurettes and deleted scenes. So I wish the transfer was from the better master. It's worth checking out for the movie itself. If you're a hardcore fan and want the best quality, you might want to seek out second sights to see how that works out for you. I'm sure you can import it from like Diabolic or Grindhouse or Orbit. But check out Chopper in whatever form. But Shout, the package is fine. It's just I wish they would have been able to do the ultimate version. Heading over to a couple of Eureka Entertainment titles. My first one is Prison Walls, Abashiri Prison 1 through 3. This is an ongoing series, which I hope we get more from, but this is a trio of movies that follows, like, roughly follows the same character here, who, in the first movie, he is kind of like a Yakuza member who has recently been sent to prison and for kind of some of his gangster activities. So you get 1 and 2 on the first disc, and then 3 on the second disc, and I will the cover art underneath here. In the first film, so he's in prison and he ends up he's not wanting to, but he gets involved in an escape from like with an unstable inmate, and it's probably my favorite of the 3, where it's like them in like this snowy mountain trying to escape the law, and kind of his relationship with the warden and how this kind of plays out is really interesting. The second one is kind of my least favorite, where he is out of prison. The main character is out of prison, and he kind of gets caught up in like this this jewel robbery, and just kind of getting mixed up into like a overarching plot that it's entertaining enough, but overall it's probably the weakest of the 3. The third one is my second favorite. It gets him more back into his proper gang life and how he's learned a lot in prison and doesn't completely want to get back in this life, but also has like a sense of honor where he gets back involved in this gang warfare, and it's just kind of craziness. But overall, 3 solid crime films, and very much worth checking out, especially the first one. But 3 good films from Eureka Entertainment. These have all been restored from their original elements by Toei. Each film is given an audio commentary track. Each film is provided in their original Japanese audio. You get an additional interview with Japanese film historian Tony Raines. You get an appreciation piece on this series. Everything looks pretty solid. Sound is good. Eureka Entertainment has knocked it out of the park. This Prison Wall collection is one of the better things I've watched this week, so definitely check that one out. Staying in the realm of Asian cinema, this is from Hong Kong, I believe. This is Queen's Ransom. And so this has George Lazenby along with a bunch of like Hong Kong superstars, including Angela Mao, Bola Young, Peter Chan Leung, Jimmy Wang Yu. Lots of great talent here. So compared to Abashiri Prison, this one isn't, in terms of like martial arts, like espionage movies, this wasn't my favorite. I think it's solid. This involves the Queen of England visiting Hong Kong for like a trip where this cabal puts like together like a plot to assassinate her, but then you also have some police who are trying to make sure that doesn't happen, and it's just like kind of like these factions warring to try to either take out the queen or protect her. And this really takes it like an everything in the kitchen sink approach to the narratives, that it just kind of feels a little bit overstuffed and a little bit too chaotic for my liking. It's a decent watch, but just in terms of like other Hong Kong cinema that I've watched, it's just a little bit pales in comparison. But as a release, Eureka has done a really good job with it. This does come from a 2K restoration. It has the original Hong Kong cut and the US export cut. The Hong Kong cut's about 6 or 7 minutes longer than the export cut. Both have been restored. Both look fantastic. 2 commentary tracks, and then a 16-minute featurette with one of the people who trained George Lazenby for this particular movie. And he's also a martial arts expert that's worked on other movies. It has a lot of good stories. So Queen's Ransom, not my favorite, but if you're a fan of Hong Kong cinema, it's still worth checking out. Eureka always does a really good job with their releases, and I don't think anyone will be really let down. My final title is a 3-film collection, another one. Lots of films watched this week. From Imprint Films from Australia. Yes, this is from Australia, but they can be played in any Blu-ray player worldwide, so if you import to the US, you are clear. This is the Kim Novak collection. So 3 films by her. Here's the back. Here is a card that originally comes on the back but comes off, so you get to see the 3 films here. Here's a nice look at the packaging. So I will show off the 3 films that are in here. So you have first Pal Joey, which is more so a Frank Sinatra vehicle than Kim Novak, but you have Frank Sinatra as kind of like a man who's like a club singer who kind of he's kind of like a notorious cad and just like womanizer. And he gets kind of in between Rita Hayworth's character, who's like more of like a former showgirl turned socialite, and then Kim Novak's character, who's like more of like the young ingenue, who is probably the one that appeals more to Frank Sinatra's heart, but he kind of gets caught up with the idea of being with this other Rita Hayworth character. It's overall a pretty solid movie. I quite enjoyed it. All 3 are doing really good work. Kim Novak is kind of the heart of this, but I do love Rita Hayworth and think it's a really good turn from her. For Sinatra, he's good. He's solid. I think he puts in good work, but the women do steal it from him, in my opinion. So after Pal Joey, that Pal Joey, if you're interested, has been released by Sony in the US. The next 2 films have not been released anywhere on Blu-ray. These are both worldwide Blu-ray debuts, including Gene Eagle, so Kim Novak, and Jeff Chandler. This is about a woman who she gets involved in performance, and she ends up being like a stage performer, and then she comes from like kind of like a circus background, but she ends up becoming a major Broadway star. But she is the type of person who is leaving all her like friends and close loved ones behind in the circus, and then also she is kind of like clawing herself over other people to get like these roles that she's kind of losing her morality in the course of like in her search for fame. So it's kind of like a doomed tale of the perils of fame, and Novak does a fantastic job. She provides a large range of emotion that works very well, and it's very melodramatic but very good, and I think she kills it. The last movie, also making its worldwide debut, is Middle of the Night with Kim Novak and Frederick March. This one, I think it's intentionally provoking. It is Kim Novak, like a 20-something divorcee, who ends up getting into a relationship with... There's conflicting things. Some people, I read that it was like he's in his 50s. Another I saw was in his 60s. But a much older man, played by Frederick March, who is like a widower. And this is a movie about how everyone thinks their relationship is inappropriate. And it like... upsets like his family and her family, and just like the connection that they form with one another. And while watching this, I did feel a little bit like I felt a little bit of what their family felt, but I also could relate to having someone you loved, and like more so the reason I kind of objected to their relationship is I just never really felt like there was an earnestness to their relationship, like a connection to them. I'm not opposed to the basic premise of the movie. I didn't feel like Kim Novak and Frederick March had enough romantic chemistry to really drive the point home, but they both do good for what they're trying. It's just like that chemistry doesn't really quite put it over the edge for me. So This is probably my least favorite, even if it is still a good one. But yeah, Middle of the Night, pretty solid. All three of these films from Imprint are coming from HD Masters, presumably supplied by Sony, Columbia Pictures. Sony does all of their restorations on their own, so they would have not had a chance to do any restorations to make it look better. I think most of these look pretty solid for what they are. There's some lingering damage in here, so I think maybe not all of these are like fresh masters, but if they are, they've been cleaned up pretty well with just some lingering things that have made it through the restoration gauntlet. But Kim Novak, the Kim Novak collection, if you're a fan, even for those who may own the region, Pal Joey, the other two films, you cannot own them anywhere else right now, and they're worth checking out. There are some pretty solid features. You get a commentary track on Pal Joey and Gene Eagles. You get some featurettes. So overall, Imprint did a good job. So check it out if you're a Kim Novak fan. And that is those are my titles. That's everything I have. I hope you've enjoyed it. I really liked a lot of the stuff I talked about, and let me know if I've inspired you to check any of these things out. If you liked this, make sure to comment. Let me know what you liked or didn't like, what I can improve within reason. Be nice. If you like this, make sure to share it with anyone who you think might also like this. Make sure you subscribe to Geek Vibes Nation, the YouTube channel, and I will be back again next week with another great slate of titles, but until then, enjoy these movies.
Oh no, look away, baby!
Oh! Robot! Disable pulse blaster!
Command accepted.
Cancel attack sequence and stay